Hi, you're listening to a Pod for Good Media Network podcast. We are a network that provides podcasting production services and a supportive community in which podcasters can thrive. If you're a podcaster local in the Tulsa area, we would love to have your show on the network. If you are interested in starting one, we would love to help you get started. Find us online at podforgoodmedia.com and fill out our Pod With Us form. Happy podcasting. Welcome to another episode of Pod for Good, a podcast where we learn from those doing good in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the world, why they care, what we can do, and most importantly, what you, the listeners, can do. Pod for Good is produced and edited by Pod for Good Media, so if you like how we sound and are thinking about starting a podcast, reach out to us. We are easy to find. Pod for Good can be found anywhere you get your podcasts, so if you enjoy what we do here, please make sure to subscribe and share this episode on social media. I am, as always, your chief philanthropod and class clown for loving the Waldorf curriculum, but hating the Waldorf salad, Jesse Ulrich.
And I am your vice admiral philanthropod and class clown for practical skills in school, Chris Miller.
And today we're talking with Principal Margaritte and Amber Gates from the Under the Canopy School.
We talked to Margaritte and Amber about the revolutionary style of Under the Canopy, turning a passion into an after-school program and into a school, and the value of teaching skills like woodworking to children.
Enjoy. We are very excited to have Margaritte back on the podcast. For our listeners, you'll remember Margaritte is the principal and I guess founder. I don't know what titles you give yourself for the Under the Canopy School. And so last time we spoke to you, it was a dream. It was a future dream. And now it is real. It is a reality. So catch us up. How's it been going?
That's right. So Under the Canopy, as you might remember, started as an after-school program, summer camps, workshops, community events, and started in 2016. And about 2022, I began a fellowship with the Oklahoma Public School Resource Center and started making the dream of this after-school program and summer camp to becoming the reality of a full-blown school. I've been working very diligently since then, and we got authorized last year with Tulsa Public Schools. We're actually an authorized charter school through Tulsa Public, and we open our doors August 20th of this year.
That's very exciting. I know we were trying to schedule a podcast earlier in the year to sort of get through your first enrollment drive. How does that go with charter schools in the TPS system?
Okay. So actually, our enrollment system is the same as TPS. So we're actually just an option for parents. It is a district of choice. Families can select, I believe it's like 6 options for schools. And if they put us as their number one choice or even within whatever rank, then they are sorted by lottery. And then they get to be offered a spot at our school. So there's 2 enrollment windows, and we're just at the tail end of the first enrollment window. And we were able to offer spots to our students for the first time. It's very exciting. A lot of families have been waiting for this school for years. So it was so fun to be able to see their names come in and be able to accept spots. There is a little wait list, but we also have a second enrollment window. There's not a wait list in every single grade. So our second enrollment window begins on April 28th. And ends May 23rd. And that's the same as the TPS system. So most people know those dates. So we even have the opportunity to accept even more children into the school. And the only difference is, unlike the regular TPS system, we keep our wait lists open all year. So we can actually bring in children throughout the year.
That's cool. Now, both Jesse and I went to Broken Arrow, where it was strictly based on where you lived. So the whole idea of district of choice has always been kind of interesting to me. Anyways, I am curious how much of your students come from like the neighborhood and area around versus students coming from all over Tulsa.
Oh, that's a good question. So we really focused our efforts in this last year on community engagement. And a big focus was on making sure that people in West Tulsa knew this was an option for them. That school has been the school is actually opening in the Old Park Elementary School site, and that is in the Red Fork neighborhood of West Tulsa. And within that neighborhood, that school has been closed since, I believe, 2016. And in 2019, the school was put up for surplus. And so that neighborhood has been lacking a school for a while. So that was like, we put a lot of effort into making sure people in the Red Fork neighborhood knew that that was a school option for them. At the same time, we're an innovative model school and we can actually pull from all over the place. So we have children coming in from Bixby, Broken Arrow, as well as Midtown Tulsa and other parts of Tulsa that are also just drawn to the school for its innovative model.
So can you, for our listeners that may not remember, can you describe a little bit about the innovative model and what the goals and purpose of Under the Canopy?
Yeah, for sure. So we are a nature-based public Waldorf school.
I understood some of those words.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll start with the nature-based. Nature-based is very important to us. I started Under the Canopy with the mission of getting more young people outside, learning about and loving the nature that surrounds them daily. So I was really focused not only on like just appreciating wild, beautiful, scenic places that you can sometimes access, but also just like opening up that sense of joy and wonder with the backyard nature, with everything that's happening around us as the spring's unfolding, really understanding what birds are saying to each other and what insects are crawling about and what the trees are and the flowers and all of that. So the nature-based model was very important to me that we focused the school around that. As I was developing the school, though, we really needed to have a strong educational model that could go along with it. And nature-based is such a new model that it could really go a lot of different directions, how people bring in the education model. And we chose public Waldorf. And public Waldorf really aligns beautifully with the nature-based model because it's very much focused on human development. And what I mean by that is like teaching not only to the head, but we say teaching to the head, hands, and heart. So it's not just filling your brain with academic knowledge and just being a dumping place ground for information, but seeing you as a whole person and how to integrate study into being a whole person.
I mean, like, sorry, I'm absorbing that and it just sounds great. So, okay. I know we asked you a lot of these questions the first time, but
Also, we could field some education questions over there. So
I've got
she is the instructional leader. Just FYI.
I have some education questions for our educator here, which is, I guess, so how does it work with charter schools in a public school system where I know there are requirements that have to be hit, but then there is, I guess, some freedom and leeway in some of that, right? So I guess like how much, I don't want to use the word constraints, but how much are things you have to do versus the things you want to do?
That's a great question. And actually, that's been kind of my work for the past few months is to take the Oklahoma academic standards and fit them along with the mission and paradigm of the nature-based and the Waldorf, the public Waldorf models. So we are beholden to those Oklahoma academic standards. We do need to meet them at all grade levels. And the tricky part is that with Waldorf, they actually do things later than the core curriculum, the nationwide core curriculum, or the Oklahoma academic standards suggest. So what we've had to do is, for example, our kindergarten is play-based. And that means no direct instruction of, for example, reading. However, I'm sure most people listening would know that in kindergarten, in most public schools, that's when they're taught how to read and they have their reading worksheets and their little Bob books and whatever. So our task is then to preserve that play-based model for the kids, give them time to actually be exploring their surroundings and be in wonder and still get those skills to them in a way that is not direct instruction. So through song, through movement, through play, games that our teachers will construct to help teach phonemic awareness, for example. And so that's been our work over the past few months, creating guides for our teachers to make sure that they are meeting those standards but they're doing it in a more creative way.
And so in those instances, how much control do the teachers have on the specific curriculum and games and everything else versus how much do you sort of direct?
Right. So that's one of the most beautiful things, in my opinion, about the Waldorf paradigm is that the teacher is the one who's going to figure out how the information and the skills are delivered to the students. And the reason for that is that the teacher, him or herself, is in close relationship with those students and knows what their specific needs are. And so Rudolf Steiner, who is the founder of the Waldorf education paradigm, really wanted the teacher to bring their own self to what they were doing and not be reliant upon a textbook, which is kind of pre-digested, right? In fact, the teachers are also encouraged when they're teaching through story to be telling those stories without reading from a page, but actually remembering a story and telling it with purpose and acting it out in a way that's authentic to themselves so that it comes across more authentically to the students.
It seems like that would require a different set of skills than other types of teaching. So how do you select a teacher that is able to do that?
That's something that we've been doing the past couple of months in interviewing candidates and meeting people who are drawn to our model. It's really been interesting to try and select that, to try and guess that, gauge where this person is and what they could bring to their teaching. One of the terms that is used in Waldorf is striving. And as I have been doing reading and researching, and as Margaritte and I have both been taking classes in Waldorf leadership development, you start to recognize the striving in a person and that creativity in a person. It's almost a yearning for coming out of these kind of robotic prepackaged teaching positions that they've had to be in the public schools and getting to actually incorporate artistry into their teaching and incorporate themselves. And so when we've had conversations with candidates, it's been really interesting to see them. At first, they're in a teaching interview and they're very buttoned up. And then as we're asking questions that kind of tease out that personality from them, we get to see who they are and what they could bring. And then we've also asked them to do a performance task as part of their interview. And we actually get to see them do storytelling or do maybe teaching a skill through a song or through movement. And you can tell that they've just been dying to actually teach students instead of just delivering information.
Where are these teacher candidates coming from? Because as anyone who's been following, Oklahoma education the last couple of years knows, we have a teacher shortage. And so I'm wondering if these are already public school teachers who are just wanting to do something more exciting for, I'm assuming, the same amount of money, or are these people who didn't want to go into teaching but had that desire, and so now when they found sort of a school that does things the way they wanted to, they're coming into it?
It's been kind of an interesting mix. By and large, our grades teachers, first, second, third grade, have been public school teachers that are wanting to get out of that particular path of teaching and into something more authentic. Our specials teachers, we've had a bit of a mix. People that have been in other types of teaching jobs, but not necessarily in a school. And they're bringing those talents then into the school setting because it's such a unique place. But I would say overwhelmingly they've had teaching experience in a school and are just wanting something very different for themselves.
Yeah. We also have public and private school teachers that have been drawn to the model.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if, in addressing your question about like teacher training, about what our plan is for our teacher training, because we're not just expecting people to come in and know what nature-based public Waldorf schools are supposed to look like. I mean, this is bringing a new model to this part of the country. We are actually the 60th of 61 public Waldorf schools in the country. So it is a very unique model, even within the entire United States. We have a summer institute that we're doing, and we are doing extensive professional development throughout the first year. And in the second year is when our teachers will begin their Waldorf certification, which lasts 3 years.
Wow.
So there's a lot of training involved with getting to this point too.
So have you been able to observe this style of teaching and education in action? One of the things I'm curious about is anytime you're trying to develop a model where you can in some ways personalize to individual students, how you balance that with, the unfortunate class size we tend to have in Oklahoma.
Personally, I actually taught at an early childhood Waldorf school. So I had the opportunity to be a part of the rhythm of what early childhood looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, I knew people that had attended Waldorf schools growing up. I had friends, and I was like fascinated by the model and thought I would really have done well had I gone to a school like that. During my fellowship with the Oklahoma Public School Resource Center, I was able to actually go and visit public Waldorf schools. I visited several of them. And then my team here, we all went up to New Hampshire and had a residency on a public Waldorf school campus. And that has been immensely helpful in having a true understanding, because you can read books all day and look at websites, but then when you actually are sitting in the classrooms and watching how things are done and taking tons of notes, and I learned so much from those trips. And some of those schools have really been mentors to us as well as the Public Waldorf Alliance. So the Alliance is actually in California, and we are initiative members of that alliance. So they have a lot of professional development. They have a summer PD that they do for leaders as well as for teachers and board members too. So anyone can really do it that's involved with the school. And then they also have a conference every year, and they have 7 core principles that we all lead our schools by. That's how you become an initiative member.
The plan is to open this fall, right? The beginning of the next school year. And before we came on air, you showed us some very beautiful renderings of what the building's going to look like. I'm guessing most of this won't be done by the time the school opens.
So the word striving comes into the conversation. Yeah, we are right in the process of getting all of our renovations underway. What's nice about it is that there's a lot that's grandfathered in by going with an old school building. It's not like we're having to convert an office space to a school, which a lot of charters are in that situation because there's not many districts that will give old school buildings to charter schools. So we're very lucky in that way. There's a lot. It's really a facelift situation more than a complete remodel or renovation, like a gutting. It's definitely more along the lines of painting and redoing floors and putting in the kitchen and patching things and HVAC replacement where it needs it, things like that.
So, I mean, and you sort of mentioned like some of the community building you were doing in the neighborhood where the school is, but I'm curious for students who are not in that neighborhood, like what's the marketing strategy for a new charter school? Like, were you going into other schools and like pitching your school, or is there like a school fair where like kids can learn about? I'm just curious how that all works. Again, we were just told where to go.
Yeah.
There was a school in our neighborhood. We went there, and when they built new schools, we went to those. So, which happened to me multiple times. They kept building new schools. They're like, "You're going to this one now." I'm like, "Okay."
I just got stuck at all the old schools.
Yeah, I was in the more, I guess, populous part of Broken Arrow. So,
okay, so I mean, part of the community engagement strategy is not just. I know I started by talking about the neighborhood, and that's where we're focusing some efforts. But then we also have been talking about this for a very long time in all different realms. So no, we don't go into schools and market.
you'd be like,
That
"This school
would be pretty
sucks," right? No, I'm just kidding.
But I will say we do a ton of community events. So we put ourselves in positions where we could run into the most people like that would not organically be drawn to us. And we also put out extensive marketing campaign and worked with a marketing firm to make sure everything was very searchable. So combined with like the searchability, we were just like at booths for most of last fall. And I'm talking like something happened at the gathering place, we had a booth and a craft, and we talked about the school. Farmers market was a huge place. Like any kind of community festival that was happening, you probably saw Chris or I or Amber or our volunteers, and families have been volunteering at those booths too. Everything related to Earth Day. That's a big time when people start caring about trees for a moment. There's also another thing we did. We went to preschools because that's where you're not like trying to take away from people's enrollment. And we also have had a big homeschool reach because a lot of people that choose homeschooling haven't found a model that works for their families, and they're really excited about different and new things. And a lot of them are trying to do this on their own at home, and they were so happy to have a school that they can now send their children to.
Well,
So we're actually
yeah.
bringing quite a few children into the district.
Well, and I imagine you also you had a sort of a network of contacts from doing this as a program at schools.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, I already had a lot of community partnerships. So I tapped all of that in terms of like, are you having an event? We want to come. Like, yeah, they were like, oh yeah, definitely Under the Canopy. And I was already doing that stuff for the after school program.
Do you have any kind of feel for how many students who went through your after school program that are now going to your school?
Oh, that's a good question. Unfortunately, not as many as one would hope. And it's just related to the fact that those children keep aging.
I was gonna say,
Yeah,
they probably would have aged out by now. Most
Yeah,
of them. So.
that's true.
Not all of them. We did intentionally open pre-K through third so that we could catch some of those kids. And I will say we have some of our third graders that did take part in the after school program. But it's just amazing how fleeting childhood is.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, some of them are in high school now.
This is another kind of in the weeds question, but I'm always fascinated by the school funding within our state. The way it works, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I'm curious how funding specifically works for charter schools relative to public schools.
That's very similar because charter schools are free, public, open to all, right? And within that, we get what's called weighted ADM. So it's basically like state-based aid. And it's based off of how many children are going to your school and how often they attend. That's actually part of it too.
Yeah.
So we get our state aid and based off of student count. And then we also get some federal funding. So we get funding through the different title funds and IDEA. And then we also get some foundation funding. But I think where it's different than a traditional public school is that we get state aid, the same as public schools, but we do not receive any bond funding.
So then for an example, like when you're trying to do renovations, what do you use for capital funding if you don't have access to bond funds?
Well, it's quite a puzzle, I will say. I mean, one thing that we were eligible for when we got authorized was applying for and then receiving the charter school program grant. So that is created to help charter schools get started, and it is federal funding. However, it's a reimbursable fund and it's very restrictive on what you can use it for. So parts of our renovation to get our building up to code are taken care of with that grant, but other things that are more cosmetic, not so much. So it's definitely weighing what we can do with that funding.
So you're in the getting school stage, you're getting in the training teachers phase, you're getting in the recruitment phase, and then a couple months from now, when TPS starts its, I guess, 25-26 school year, you're going to have your first day. Like, are you in a place where you're thinking about that right now?
Oh, of course. I mean, we're actually starting the same day as Tulsa Public Schools. We could choose our own start day. We get to choose our own calendar. There's quite a bit that we get to choose. And we're definitely thinking about that first day a lot. Top of mind, I would say.
Okay. So wait, so charter schools can just start, like, is there a window they must start within?
No. I mean, we could have a year-round school. That is a model. Some people do. My friend's kid in North Carolina goes to year-round school. I mean, it is a thing, and that's like, and her public school does that. So
That's awesome. I've always thought that was a good idea. So
we could have more instructional days if our model required it. Right now, keeping things simple as we move into this new this whole new thing for people. We are keeping pretty close to the Tulsa Public Schools calendar in terms of calendar days and when we have our breaks. And that's also for ease of parenting because a lot of people have kids that can't attend the school that go to other schools. So our calendar at this point is very much dictated by this similarities to Tulsa Public Schools, but it could change if we wanted it to, if we thought it made sense for our academic model.
And if I heard you right, like you're just going up to the 3rd grade.
Oh, so no, we are going up to 5th grade, but in year 1, we are starting at pre-K through 3rd. So we're adding a grade each year.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was thinking, I was just like, then the kids have to go to another school after 3rd grade.
Right.
So, which I did. And again, that's because they built a new school.
But that makes some sense rather than having a kid go through this model for only 1 year as a 5th grader and then move on. Everyone, by the time they leave your school, will have been through the program for at least 3 years, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. But that also helps you, like, that's less things to manage at the very beginning. So,
Exactly.
you know. And as we all know, middle schoolers are the worst. And as you approach middle school, the children become worse. That's my own personal opinion, but I've had other teachers either agree with me and then one teacher that did not agree with me who loved middle schoolers for some reason. But
I'll tell you, you have one over here that loves middle schoolers.
Yeah, I do.
the worst.
8th graders are my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, I really think 7th grade is the worst. And like
Agreed.
7th
Yes.
grade should be sent out into the forest and like learn how to like build a cabin and like take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Actually, that's part of the Waldorf.
Well, there you
Yes.
go. Oh my God.
Is they learn how to build a structure.
I've been looking for this my whole life.
And we teach them that in the 3rd grade. So
Amazing.
even earlier.
Amazing. Yeah.
That's really cool.
We
Yeah,
prepare them for that 7th grade year.
That's
in the
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, mostly just 7th grade. It's just
Yeah.
7th graders when I was a Boston Public School substitute teacher. So like not a great situation anyway. But middle school's the worst. And I eventually just stopped doing that. I was like, nope. Like at least the high schoolers, some of them were checked out and some of them were paying attention. But at least the checked out ones didn't like, break things while they were checking out. So
So you mentioned building a structure. What are some of the other, I don't know, projects or pieces of
Yeah.
curriculum that you're really excited about?
Well, one of the things that I'm just really excited about is Marguerite mentioned earlier that we educate to the head, hands, and heart. And the hands portion of that is really unique to Waldorf. The children are taught to knit and crochet. They are taught to sew. They are taught woodworking. All of this is at different ages as they go throughout the curriculum. And in the early childhood, in the pre-K and kindergarten, they're taught to bake. They're taught to chop vegetables. So many practical skills, and it really just stands out as different. And every time we would go to one of these community events where we'd be talking to families, as soon as I would mention this handwork piece of the puzzle, eyebrows would just shoot up their foreheads. They were so excited. And then I would start to talk about how art is integrated throughout the entire curriculum. So the students are always going to have some sort of a drawing or an artistic representation of what they're learning currently. It's really a considerate model of the entire person, and that includes their soul and like what's beautiful about being creative and being able to have that space. And in so many public schools, the arts are what get removed first. And that just isn't going to happen in a school like ours. They will have music every single day in every single class. They will have art in every single class across all subject areas. So I'm trying to think of some really key years where things happen. I know in 3rd grade, they knit a hat, which is really cool. And that's also they're building a structure year.
They make stuffies in 2nd grade.
Oh, that's right. The
Yeah.
stuffies. They make their own knitting needles in 1st grade.
Wow.
They actually whittle their own needles.
That's cool.
So really cool stuff.
how do you safely teach a child how to chop vegetables?
There are specific tools that are safe for them.
Like other safety knives, I guess?
Yeah.
My
Essentially,
niece has
yeah.
one.
Okay.
Uses to cut. to help-
Fascinating.
help with
Okay.
cooking. Yeah.
There's plastic knives, which have a serrated edge. So they have enough to like be able to chop something without chopping off a finger.
Mhm.
But you're also really watching the children.
Yeah. I
as they're
mean,
doing
I assumed
it.
that part too. I was just like,
And then there are also these like in like the early childhood Waldorf program I was in, like 3 and 4 year olds, they had these like little tools where you pressed down, like it was like metal and it wasn't too sharp, but you could just like press onto the vegetable or apple chunk or something to chunk it up.
This is really cool.
Yeah,
That'd be
sure.
fun.
And I also realized that we didn't really go over that we have specials classes and what those are.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of schools have specials. They have music, they have PE, but we have a nature garden special. So every class will have a touch point with our garden, and they'll all be able to have instruction in the garden and nature areas around the school. And then what we love about our campus is that it extends beyond to 500 acres behind the school that we are going to be allowed to walk on and go into the woods some and have more of a woodsy experience. So it's not just that area right up next to the school. That's going to be more the cultivated area, and the play areas will be on the school campus, but then we'll extend beyond that. And every week we plan on doing some kind of nature excursion within the area.
It's really cool.
Yeah. I'm very excited. I'm very excited for all of you.
You're sad that it didn't exist when you were a kid.
Yeah. I just,
I know you definitely in school needed something to keep your hands busy so you could actually learn.
it would have been nice. So
All those fidgets,
I
they
know.
came out now.
when chopping
I know.
vegetables, we'll try to learn,
Yeah.
Um,
But I'm curious how that the interplay between the hands, the head, and the heart work, and what about that makes it effective.
I feel that all of like learning those handworking skills actually affects your cognitive abilities and your ability to write well and your ability to bring connections together and have a fuller understanding. There's actually been a lot of studies done on spending more time outside reduces stress and helps children focus more. And we're actually going to be collecting this kind of data on our school, like starting in year one, like watching the effects of integrating these strategies into the classroom and see how it affects their academic learning. I'm really excited about that piece. But all those bringing together the head, heart, and hands is like also it all encompasses like this imagination and this wonder. And the focus of our curriculum is to get children actually excited about learning again and not have it just be this mechanical process, to get teachers engaged with what they're learning and to really work together as a community to support every individual child. That's another huge piece, like Amber was saying about the curriculum, is that there's like sort of an individualized path for every child at the school. We're small enough to start where that can really happen and effectively do that.
Yeah, and I can imagine, especially if kids are struggling with the traditional academics, having something like, whether it's building a structure or cutting vegetables that they can do successfully can probably have an outsized impact because it's not them struggling at every subject throughout the day. Maybe there are things they're struggling, but here's something that they can be successful at that can maybe carry on into other things.
It's all those small wins,
Mhm.
right? And those add up.
and seeing the practical uses of your education, like as I used to argue with all my math teachers, like calculators can do this. Like why do I need to learn this right now, this particular way? Again, this was in the 90s, but I was like, technology is going to take care of most of this for me. So just tell me one reason, one, example from real life of when I'm going to use this knowledge. And like here, you will have those things. Like if you're going to build something, you have to know shapes, you have to know angles, you have to know all the sorts of things. And so that's, growing something from the ground requires knowledge from multiple different sort of topics. So you're about to hit the next enrollment period. How many students are you planning to have total in the school?
Between 144 and 160.
All right.
We're open to those numbers.
As we're approaching this, and when this episode comes out, this will be near that second enrollment period. Like, how can our listeners, what do you want to communicate to them on how best to help you, their kids, the school as a whole?
I just want to say that this model is something that is very new to hear. Like there's no other school like it. And I think we are going to have such a good time at this school. And I really think that we're going to meet a lot of different kinds of learning needs. I've seen the engagement and I've seen the commitment that families can have to this, and what a beautiful community that comes forth from public Waldorf schools. And already we've had such a beautiful community with our after school program, and here we are blossoming into a school. So we want we want all the children to come, and it's just going to keep growing.
Yeah, and I would just say I would encourage families to get curious. And that's one of our huge tenets in Waldorf, is to spark curiosity. And if you're listening to this and wondering if this is the kind of place that might be great for your family, contact us. We would love to talk to you about what we have to offer. On our website, there's a brief video that talks about the program. Start to wonder if maybe this is the place that could resonate with your family and could be wonderful for your children. But we don't just want your children. We want your whole family. We want moms and dads and caregivers to be involved and be part of what we're doing. It's more than just teaching kids. It is building community, and that's part of our focus. So that's what I would say.
And how can they help out financially?
I think the biggest things that we are really focused on with our school and fundraising right now is making sure that we are getting this facility in a wonderful place to start. So there's a lot of opportunities for donating to our outdoor classroom areas and naming opportunities too. And these are going to be some really fun, dynamic spaces that could also be used for the whole community, not just the school. So we have the Nature Learning Lab. There's definitely lots of opportunity to help with specifically the picnic shelters within that. And maybe that's too simple of a word. They're really the heart of these spaces so that academic learning can be taken outdoors and also have a space to be when the weather's like not bad enough to be like, I can't go outside, but you need like an opportunity to be under shelter. And those things cost quite a bit of money. So we would love to get opportunities for funders to be a part of that.
If you have like a bouncy ball area, I bet Chris and I could roll up some money together to get it named after us. Well, I wish you all like massive success. Hopefully we can check in with you again like a year from now and see how the first year is going. And we'll make sure to put all of the stuff that you mentioned like in our show notes so people can check out your website and find out more about the system, which sounds fascinating. Thank you all so much for joining us today.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, one more thing.
Also, I just want to make sure that people know that the next enrollment window opens April 28th, and it will be open from April 28th to May 23rd. And if you want to see us this month, we'll be at the Earth Day Enviro Fair. We'll be at the early May Farmers Market.
Very cool. Thank you all so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all for listening to our episode with the Under the Canopy School. Please make sure to check them out online, in person, and if you're looking for a new school, you should check them out. And as always, please support Pod for Good on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Blue Sky. And maybe even Spotlight. Is that the name of the TikTok replacement? Hold on. We're going to edit this part out. Skylight. That's what it's called. Skylight.
Who's doing
We're not
Skylight?
on Skylight yet, but Skylight is an American TikTok replacement. I don't know if anyone's actually on it, but it is available
I hadn't heard of it. Interesting.
in app form. As always, Tulsa, get it done. Broken Arrow, I'm too busy worried about national things. But please, everyone, be kind to one another. Also, get your vaccines.